Alright, this is the Vlad and their deck tech. This time it's a modern Elves deck that is budget. It's around 100 tickets. I think it's 110 right now, which isn't the most budget price tag of all time. But comparing it to the top decks of modern right now, which are, the cheapest one I saw was Storm, which is 450 tickets. Most of them range up to 700 to 1,000. So 100 tickets for modern deck, pretty good. You're doing pretty well. But yeah, it's Elves. For those of you who aren't super familiar with the cards, Elvish Mystic and Llanowar Elves just tap for green. Heritage Druid is a really powerful card that says tap 3 untapped elves you control to add green to your mana pool, and that works really well with Nettle Sentinel. Whenever you cast a green spell, you may untap Nettle Sentinel. So these cards are really turn one. You really want to play something that can generate mana. Heritage Druid, maybe you don't play that turn one always. Probably your last pick, but you can use it to go off pretty quickly. Your plan is to use these to generate mana fast, and then ramp into bigger and bigger things, and just kind of going wide with all these elves. So you have Dwynen's Elite, which makes 1/1 token when it enters if you have an elf. Devoted Druid adds more mana, which combos with Vizier of Remedies infinitely. For those of you who haven't seen this before, it says if one or more -1/-1 counters we put on a creature you control, it does that many -1. Devoted Druid says put 1, it says A, counter on it, untap it, so it puts on 0, untaps it, infinite green mana, which you can use for things like Izuri Renegade Leader to give all your creatures +3/+3 and trample, overrun a bunch of times in a row to swing in for huge attacks, or you can use it for a big Court of Calling, which will usually just get Izuri. Elvish Archdruid is a lord, gets all your elves bigger, adds a ton of mana if you can untap with it, very powerful. And then Lead the Stampede is what we're playing instead of Collected Company to refill our hands and get some card advantage back. Mana base, you got your green-white lands, your fetches, your Westvale Abbey, which can be really good when your opponent has stuff that can go up the board and you don't have Azuri. And a singleton Penalhaven to kind of make your 1/1s a little bigger and get them out of harm's way sometimes. The white splash is only for Vizier Remedies in the main deck, but it opens up a lot of powerful cards for the sideboard. We get to play Path to Exile for decks that play big creatures that we need to deal with, like Prime Time, a Brenton Forge Tender to stop things like Anger of the Gods, Scavenging News for Graveyard Hate, Stony Silence for artifacts, Selfless Spirit for the decks to play Supreme Verdict or Damnation, Aven Mind Sensor to stop things. Again, I think you'd bring this in against Escape Shift and just decks that are trying to search their library. And then Eidolon and Rhetoric for Storm, which you really can't stop with Elves, obviously. You're not interacting with their hand or their spells in the stack. You're able to play a lot of 1-of and 2-of creatures with Court of Calling and Deleted Stampede to an extent, but mostly Court of Calling. If you have the mana up and turn 4 and your opponent goes for Supreme Verdict, you can Court of Calling for a Selfless Spirit and things like that. It just gives you a little toolbox for the sideboard. I think that I've played this deck a few times. You can really get a big board quickly, and I think this deck can be pretty powerful. It's pretty cheap. If you wanted to, you could cut the white. You don't really need to go with infinite mana. You can generate a ton of it without it, and Aziri is really good, so if you want to make it more budget, just making it mono green. I think that the biggest reason that hurts is your sideboard becomes a lot worse. You're not able to play nearly as many cards that matter, that interact with what your opponent's doing. If they're doing something that's maybe a little faster than you, a little stronger than what you're doing, but definitely possible. And I might go into that and maybe look at that later. But I think that this deck, about 100 tickets, it's budget. It's something that you could build without breaking the bank, and I think it'll be really strong. So let's check it out. We'll go into the league right now.